She thought she was just humiliating a black waitress. But when she tore that dress in front of hundreds, she had no idea the woman she insulted wasn't just a server. She was about to become her biggest downfall. And her own billionaire husband saw everything. Let's continue this story. The sound of laughter and crystal glasses filled the grand ballroom of the Lexington Hotel. Golden chandeliers shimmered above a sea of elegant guests, billionaires, politicians, and socialites dressed in glittering gowns and tailored tuxedos. But all eyes were on one woman, Veronica Steele, the stunning blonde wife of billionaire investor Richard Steele. She walked as if she owned the air around her, her diamond necklace sparkling like she'd bottled starlight. But tonight, Veronica wasn't just here to impress. She was here to dominate. It was the biggest charity gala of the year, hosted by none other than her husband's company. And she wanted every woman in the room to know she was Mrs. Richard Steele, Queen of the Empire. Among the bustle of servers carrying champagne and trays of caviar, a young black waitress named Amara moved quietly, careful not to bump into anyone. She'd only been working at the hotel for 2 weeks. Her mother had fallen ill, and every shift meant money for medicine, rent, and survival. Amara's dark curls were pulled into a neat bun, her white uniform spotless, her hands steady. But as fate would have it, one moment would change everything. Veronica, in her deep emerald silk gown, had been talking to a group of guests when Amara passed behind her with a tray of wine. A guest accidentally brushed Amara's elbow, and a few drops of red wine splashed onto the edge of Veronica's dress. For a moment, silence. The music didn't stop, but it felt like it had. Everyone's eyes turned. Veronica looked down at the stain, barely visible, but to her, it was a mortal insult. You ruined my dress," she hissed. Amara froze. I'm so sorry, ma'am. It was an accident. I can get a towel. Don't you dare touch me." Veronica snapped, her voice cutting through the air. "Do you have any idea how much this costs?" The guests shifted awkwardly. Some whispered. Amara felt her chest tighten. "Please, ma'am. I didn't mean to." But before she could finish, Veronica grabbed the hem of her silk gown, and in a shocking, furious motion, ripped it apart. The sound of tearing fabric sliced through the ballroom. Gasps erupted around them. A few people covered their mouths. Veronica stood there, breathing hard, clutching the torn dress like a trophy. "You see this?" she shouted. "This is what happens when people like you don't know their place." Amara's eyes filled with tears. Her heart hammered in her chest. The humiliation burned like fire in her veins. She wanted to vanish, to run, but her legs refused to move. "Veronica," one of her friends whispered urgently. "That's enough." But Veronica wasn't listening. She was too lost in her rage, in the twisted thrill of asserting her power. "You think you can just walk around serving drinks, ruining people's nights, and what, Veronica?" The voice came from behind her. Calm, deep, dangerous. Every head turned. Richard Steele stood at the edge of the crowd, a glass of wine in hand. His expression was unreadable, a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. Richard," Veronica stammered, instantly softening. "Darling, it was an accident. She spilled wine all over me." Richard's gaze moved from his wife to the trembling waitress. "Miss," he said gently, "are you all right?" Amara swallowed hard. "I'm fine, sir. I'm so sorry. I didn't. You don't need to apologize." He set his glass down. "My wife seems to be the one who made a scene." The crowd exchanged uneasy glances. Veronica's cheeks flushed red. "Richard, she's working," he said sharply. "And you, Veronica, are embarrassing both of us." A long silence followed. Only the soft hum of the orchestra filled the air. Richard removed his tuxedo jacket and handed it to Amara. "Here," he said. "You shouldn't have to stand there like that." The kindness in his voice nearly broke her. No one had ever spoken to her like that in this place. She took the jacket, her hands shaking. Then Richard turned back to his wife. His tone was polite, too polite. "Why don't you go fix your dress, Veronica? I think you've done enough for one evening." She glared at him, her lips trembling with fury. "You're defending her? A waitress?" "I'm defending decency," he replied coolly. "Something you seem to have forgotten." The crowd pretended to look elsewhere, but everyone was listening. Veronica wanted to scream, to throw her wine glass, to demand control again. But something in her husband's eyes stopped her. She turned sharply and stormed out of the ballroom. the shredded silk dragging behind her like a trail of shame. Amara stood frozen, still clutching his jacket. Richard looked at her again, his expression softening. "Don't worry about her," he said quietly. "I'll make sure this never happens again." And just like that, the night that began as a glittering celebration turned into a scandal that would shake the entire city. Because what no one knew, not yet, was that this wasn't the first time Veronica Steele had used her husband's name to destroy someone's life. And it wouldn't be the last. Mara didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her small apartment bed, Richard Steele's tuxedo jacket folded neatly beside her. It still carried his cologne, clean, expensive, and strangely comforting. The same man whose wife had humiliated her in front of hundreds had been kind enough to defend her. She kept replaying that moment in her head, his calm voice, the way he stood up for her without hesitation. It didn't feel real. Her phone buzzed with messages from coworkers. "Girl, that woman's crazy. You're on every gossip page right now. Are you okay?" She opened one of the hotel staff group chats and saw her own picture. Someone had secretly filmed the whole scene. The clip had gone viral overnight. There she was, standing in her uniform, eyes wide in shock, while Veronica Steele tore her gown like a villain from a movie. The caption read, "Billionaire's wife humiliates waitress at charity event." Amara's stomach turned. She didn't want this kind of attention. The internet didn't care about truth. It only cared about drama. And she didn't need drama. She needed her job. The next morning, she went to the hotel early, expecting to be fired. But instead of her manager, she found Richard Steele himself standing in the lobby. "Miss Amara," he greeted warmly, as if nothing terrible had happened. "Do you have a moment?" Her heart nearly stopped. "Sir, I didn't mean to cause trouble last night. Please don't let them fire me. My mom's sick and he raised a hand gently. "You're not in trouble. Quite the opposite, actually. I came to apologize, personally." She blinked, confused. "Apologize? But you didn't do anything wrong. My wife did. And she did it under my name. That makes it my responsibility." He paused. "I wanted to make sure you know she won't bother you again. I've already spoken to the hotel management." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Thank you, sir. You didn't have to." "I did," he said simply. "Because what she did was unforgivable." He looked at her for a moment, really looked, and for the first time, Amara saw something behind his perfect public image. Sadness. Loneliness. The kind that hides behind billion-dollar smiles. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. "This isn't charity," he said before handing it to her. "It's an offer. I'm opening a new community program, scholarships, employment, training for underprivileged youth. You seem like the kind of person who could help me manage it." Her eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just a waitress." He smiled faintly. "You're clearly much more than that. You stayed calm in the face of humiliation. That's character, something money can't buy." Amara hesitated, then took the envelope. Inside was a formal job offer, assistant coordinator, Steele Foundation. Salary, benefits, everything. She stared at it in disbelief. "Why me?" she asked quietly. Richard met her gaze. "Because I trust my instincts. And right now, they tell me you deserve a chance." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he nodded politely and left, his security team following behind him. Amara stood there, holding that envelope like it was gold. Maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change. But what Amara didn't know was that Veronica Steele had seen the same video, and she was livid. At the Steele mansion, Veronica paced across the marble floor, her phone lighting up with notifications she wished she could destroy. Every gossip outlet in New York was tearing her apart. "Racist socialite humiliates black waitress," she read aloud in disgust. "I can't believe they're painting me as the villain." Her best friend, Chloe, sat on the couch nervously. "Veronica, you did rip your dress in front of everyone." "Oh, please," Veronica snapped. "That girl should have watched where she was going. And now Richard's making me look like the bad guy. He hasn't even come home since last night." "Maybe you should apologize," Chloe suggested cautiously. Veronica's eyes flared. "Apologize? To her? That little nobody." She grabbed her phone and scrolled through social media. Then her face darkened. "Wait, what is this?" She turned the screen toward Chloe. It was a picture of Richard in the hotel lobby, standing beside Amara. The caption read, "Richard Steele defends waitress, offers her job at his foundation." Chloe's eyes widened. "Oh no." "Oh yes," Veronica hissed. "He's making me look like a fool. Hiring her? Bringing her into our circle? She slammed her phone down. Not happening. Not ever. That night, when Richard finally returned home, the mansion was cold and silent. Veronica was waiting for him in the living room, a glass of wine in her hand. "So," she said coolly, "you found yourself a new charity case." Richard sighed, taking off his tie. "Veronica, not tonight." "Why not?" "You humiliated me in front of everyone, then gave her a job like some kind of hero. Do you realize what people are saying?" "I realize you brought it on yourself," he replied evenly. "You can't treat people like that and expect me to defend it." "Oh, spare me the lecture, Richard. You think you're a saint now?" She laughed bitterly. "Don't forget, you married me." He met her gaze. "Yes, and lately, that's been feeling more like a punishment than a partnership." Her face fell, but she quickly masked it with anger. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. I built your image, Richard. Without me, you'd still be just another investor with a fancy suit." Richard didn't respond. He just turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, shaking with rage. As the front door closed behind him, Veronica whispered to herself, "You'll regret this. Both of you." A week later, Amara walked into the gleaming glass headquarters of the Steel Foundation, heart pounding with nervous excitement. She'd spent the entire week trying to convince herself she deserved this, that it wasn't just pity or publicity. The building's marble lobby smelled faintly of fresh coffee and money. A smiling receptionist greeted her. "Good morning, Miss Amara. Mr. Steele's expecting you." She nodded, clutching her bag tighter. When she stepped into Richard's office, she was struck by how calm it felt. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, soft jazz playing in the background, and Richard himself standing near the window, hands in his pockets. "Welcome to your new start," he said with a faint smile. Amara smiled nervously. "Thank you for giving me this chance, sir. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," he said. "Now, let's get you settled. You'll be helping oversee community projects and youth scholarships. It's not glamorous work, but it's meaningful." "I like meaningful," she said softly. For a moment, Richard looked at her, not the way men look at women, but like someone seeing another human being for the first time in a long while. "Good," he said. "Then we'll get along just fine." The weeks that followed passed in a blur. Amara threw herself into the job, learning everything she could. She met struggling families, underprivileged teens, and small-town dreamers, people just like her, who were finally being given a chance. And Richard was always there. Not the cold, untouchable billionaire the media portrayed, but a man who asked questions, listened carefully, and sometimes stayed late in the office, sleeves rolled up, working beside her. He noticed everything. The way she spoke kindly to everyone, the way she never complained, even when things got hard. And though he never said it aloud, he found himself looking forward to the moments when she'd smile. That shy, honest smile that somehow eased the weight on his shoulders. But as things were improving for Amara, Veronica's bitterness was growing like poison. At home, she scrolled through social media every night, watching people praise her husband for his compassion. Richard Steele is setting an example for America's elite. His foundation's new assistant is inspiring. Every word felt like salt in an open wound. She called one of her old friends at the gossip magazine City Elite. "Listen," Veronica said smoothly, "I have a story for you. But it's off the record, until I say otherwise." "What kind of story?" the journalist asked eagerly. "The kind that exposes hypocrisy," Veronica said. "How would you like proof that the great Richard Steele is having an affair with his new employee?" The journalist gasped. "Do you have evidence?" "Not yet," Veronica said, smiling coldly. "But I will." That same week, Veronica hired a private investigator. She wanted pictures, phone records, anything she could use to destroy Amara's reputation and drag her husband down with her. Meanwhile, Amara had no idea she was being watched. She was too busy trying to keep her life together, balancing her new job with caring for her sick mother. Every night, she'd visit the hospital, bring soup, and sit by her mother's bedside. Her mother would smile faintly and say, "You look tired, baby, but proud. What's his name?" Amara would laugh. "Mom, please. He's my boss. That's all." But her mother wasn't convinced. "The way you talk about him, I can tell. Be careful with your heart, Amara. Men with power, they don't always understand what it means to hold someone else's." Amara didn't argue, but her mother's words stayed with her. One evening, Amara was working late, reviewing project proposals, when Richard appeared at her desk. "You're still here?" he asked, glancing at the clock. "I wanted to finish the reports before tomorrow's board meeting," she said. He smiled. "You remind me of myself when I was younger, always trying to prove I belonged." She hesitated. "Do you still feel like that? Even after everything you've built?" Richard leaned against her desk. "Every day? Money doesn't silence doubt, Amara. It just changes the volume." She smiled softly. "That's surprisingly honest." He chuckled. "Don't tell anyone. It might ruin my billionaire image." They laughed quietly together, and for a moment, the air between them shifted, softer, warmer. Richard's eyes lingered on her a little too long. Then he cleared his throat. "You should go home. Get some rest." As she gathered her things, he added quietly, "And, Amara, thank you for bringing life into this place again." That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She kept hearing his voice, the sincerity in it. She told herself it was nothing, just gratitude from a boss. But deep down, she knew it was more complicated than that. The next morning, Veronica's investigator handed her a stack of photos, blurry images of Amara and Richard leaving the office late at night, laughing together, standing close. "They're not incriminating," the investigator said carefully. "But if taken out of context, they won't need context," Veronica interrupted, her smile sharp. "They'll just need a headline." Within 24 hours, a new story exploded across the internet. Richard Steele's secret affair? Billionaire spotted late nights with young assistant. The comments were brutal. "Classic rich guy move. She's using him for money. He's cheating on that witch of a wife." Amara saw the news the next morning, her phone buzzing nonstop. Her hands trembled as she read the article, her heart sinking. The photos, the rumors, the comments, they made her look like everything she wasn't. She felt sick. Her mother called, voice trembling. "Amara, what's happening? Are these lies?" "They are, Mom," she said, tears filling her eyes. But lies spread faster than truth. And at that very moment, in the Steele mansion, Veronica poured herself another glass of wine and watched the news unfold, a cruel smile curving her lips. She had no idea that this time, her revenge would destroy far more than she ever intended. By the next morning, the world had turned against them. The story about Richard Steele and his young black assistant was on every social media platform, every business headline, every gossip vlog on YouTube. News anchors were discussing it. Influencers were dissecting it. People who had never met Amara had already decided who she was. At the Steele Foundation, reporters crowded the entrance, flashing cameras in every direction. Amara tried to slip inside unnoticed, but it was impossible. "Amara, Amara, are you dating Mr. Steele? Did you ruin his marriage? How long have you been seeing him?" She kept her head down, her chest tight, her throat dry. By the time she reached her office, she could barely breathe. Richard was already there, standing by the window, jaw clenched. "They ambushed you too?" "Yes," she whispered. "What's happening, sir?" "They're saying—" "I know what they're saying," he interrupted, voice low but shaking with anger. "It's a lie." He turned to face her. "Someone set this up? I have my suspicions." Amara didn't need to ask who. "Your wife." His silence was enough of an answer. Before they could say more, his assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, the board's demanding a statement." And Veronica's attorney just called. "She's threatening divorce and a press conference." Richard closed his eyes. "Of course she is." He looked back at Amara. "You didn't deserve this. None of it. I'm so sorry." Tears pricked her eyes. "People online are calling me names, saying I trapped you, that I slept my way into this job." "Stop," he said softly. "Don't give them power." But she couldn't stop shaking. "I worked so hard to prove myself, and now they're making me into a joke." Richard's voice softened. "Listen to me. The truth always wins, eventually. I'll protect you." But before he could reassure her further, a loud ping sounded from his computer. His public relations manager had just sent a draft statement, denying the affair, calling the rumors false and defamatory. Richard read it, but it didn't feel like enough. The damage had already been done. By noon, the foundation's phone lines were jammed, donors were withdrawing, and board members were panicking. The media frenzy was growing by the hour. Meanwhile, Veronica was getting exactly what she wanted, attention. She sat in a beauty salon, sipping champagne, watching the headlines play out on the flat-screen TV. Her friend Chloe whispered, "You really did it this time." Veronica smirked. "Sometimes you have to remind people who's in charge." But her smile faded when the next segment came on, a clip of Richard speaking at an emergency press conference. He stood behind the podium, composed but visibly furious. "My name has been used to spread lies," he said firmly. "I want to make one thing clear. Miss Amara Johnson is not involved in any inappropriate relationship with me. She is an employee of my foundation, hired for her integrity and work ethic. Any claims suggesting otherwise are false. I will be taking legal action against those responsible." The reporters shouted questions, but Richard walked off stage, jaw tight, refusing to feed the chaos. The clip went viral instantly. #Richard Steele trended again, this time with sympathy. Many applauded him for defending his employee publicly. Others still didn't believe him. But for Amara, that moment was everything. When she saw the video, her hands trembled. He hadn't thrown her under the bus to save himself. He'd stood up for her again. That evening, she went to his office to thank him. But when she arrived, she saw him sitting at his desk, staring at divorce papers. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. He looked up, exhausted. "Veronica's filing. She says I've embarrassed her publicly. Honestly, maybe it's time." Amara hesitated. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to cause problems between you two." Richard let out a bitter laugh. "Amara, my marriage has been a performance for years. The only difference now is that the world finally sees through it." He looked at her with weary eyes. "She married me for power. I married her because I thought she could make me happy. Turns out, we were both wrong." Amara sat down across from him. "For what it's worth, you don't seem like the man the media makes you out to be." He smiled faintly. "Neither do you." A long silence filled the room, one that felt safe, not awkward. Two people, broken by lies, finding something honest in the wreckage. But that quiet moment didn't last long. The door burst open, and Veronica walked in. Her makeup was perfect, her expression sharp. "Well," she said with icy calm, "isn't this cozy?" Richard stood up instantly. "Veronica, what are you doing here?" "Oh, don't act surprised," she snapped. "I came to see the woman you've risked everything for." Amara stood, her heart racing. "Mrs. Steele, I swear, don't you dare say my name." Veronica shouted. "You think you can steal my husband? My life?" Richard's voice was firm. "Enough, Veronica. This isn't her fault." Veronica laughed coldly. "You actually believe that, don't you? You're defending her again. You're pathetic." She turned her glare on Amara. "You know what's funny? I used to think you people knew your place. But you've got nerve, using pity and publicity to crawl your way up." "Bravo." Amara's lip trembled. "You don't know anything about me." "Oh, I know exactly what you are," Veronica hissed. "A nobody pretending to matter." "Stop," Richard barked. "You've said enough." But Veronica wasn't done. "No, let her hear it. Because when I'm through, she won't be able to work anywhere in this city. I'll make sure her name is mud." Something inside Amara snapped. "You can say whatever you want about me," she said quietly, tears glistening in her eyes. "But someday, you'll realize the only person who ruined your life is you." Veronica's face twisted with rage, and before anyone could stop her, she grabbed a glass of water from the desk and threw it across Amara's face. "Veronica!" Richard roared, grabbing her arm. But the damage was done. Amara stood there, drenched, humiliated, again. And that's when Richard said the words that changed everything. "Get out, Veronica," he said coldly. "We're done. This marriage is over." Veronica froze, realizing too late that she'd gone too far. "You can't." "I can," he said firmly. "And I just did." She stared at him, speechless, before storming out of the office, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard turned to Amara, his voice soft. "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." Amara wiped her face, still trembling. "I'm fine," she whispered. "I just want all of this to end." Richard exhaled. "It will. I promise." But deep down, both of them knew this wasn't over yet. Veronica Steele wasn't the kind of woman who walked away quietly. For 2 weeks, silence followed the storm. Veronica disappeared from the public eye, and the world's attention shifted, but not entirely. Rumors still circulated online. Some believed Richard had fired her. Others said he'd paid her off. No one really knew what happened behind those office doors that day. But Amara did. And every night since, she'd replayed the scene in her head. The shouting, the water thrown across her face, Richard's quiet words of finality. "We're done." She hadn't seen him since that day. He'd taken a temporary leave from the foundation to handle his divorce. And though Amara told herself to focus on her work, her heart felt heavier each morning without him there. Then one Friday afternoon, a security guard walked into her office holding a sleek black envelope. "Delivery for you, Miss Johnson." She frowned. "From who?" The guard smiled. "Mr. Steele." Her breath caught. She opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten note on thick paper, and beneath it, a single key. "Amara, I've learned something over the past few weeks. Truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just waits to be seen. If you're free tonight, come to the address below. There's something I need to show you." Her hands trembled as she read the address. The Steele Foundation Community Center, grand opening. When Amara arrived that evening, the building was quiet. The city lights shimmered outside, and the massive glass doors reflected her nervous face back at her. She unlocked the door with the key and stepped inside. The lights flicked on automatically, revealing a brand new facility: classrooms, a library, a computer lab. Pictures of smiling families hung on the walls, along with a plaque that read, "For those who never stop trying, the Amara Johnson Center." Amara gasped, her eyes filling with tears. Behind her, a voice said softly, "You once told me you liked meaningful work. I figured this would mean something." She turned. Richard stood a few feet away, dressed simply, no security, no cameras, just him. "You named it after me?" she whispered, overwhelmed. He smiled. "You earned it. This center will help hundreds of young people every year. Kids who just need a chance, like you once did." She blinked back tears. Why would you do this for me?" He stepped closer, his voice low. "Because you reminded me who I used to be. Before the money. Before the headlines. Before I forgot what kindness looked like." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them was quiet, heavy with emotion. Amara's heart raced. "People will talk again," she said softly. "They'll twist it into something ugly." "Let them," Richard said firmly. "They've taken enough from you. They don't get to take your story too." She looked up at him, and in his eyes, she saw not pity, not guilt, but something deeper, something real. Before she could respond, a woman's voice echoed from the doorway. "Well, isn't this touching?" Amara froze. Veronica stood in the entrance, wearing sunglasses and a bitter smile. "Security let me in," she said casually. "Old habits die hard." Richard stiffened. "Veronica, I thought I made myself clear." "You did," she said, stepping forward. "But I figured I'd give you a gift, closure." She held up her phone. "Remember that little story I leaked? The one about your affair? Turns out, the journalist who ran it just sold me out. She told everyone where she got her source. You know what that means, Richard? The truth's about to come out, and not in your favor." Richard narrowed his eyes. "You really want to destroy what's left of your reputation?" Veronica smirked. "Oh, it's too late for reputations. But it's not too late for revenge." Amara stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "You've already done enough, Mrs. Steele. You humiliated me, lied about me, and tried to ruin your husband's life. For what? Because you couldn't stand someone else being treated with respect?" Veronica's smile faltered for the first time. "You call it respect," she hissed. "I call it weakness. He used to be mine. Everything he has was mine." Richard spoke quietly. "No, Veronica. Nothing was ever yours, because you never knew how to love it. You only knew how to own it." For a moment, her eyes softened, then hardened again. She dropped the phone on the floor, the screen cracking. "You'll regret this, both of you." And with that, she turned and walked out, her heels echoing down the hall. They never saw her again. 2 weeks later, the truth came out. The journalist released a statement admitting Veronica Steele had fabricated the entire story to teach her husband a lesson. The public turned on her overnight. Her social accounts vanished, her sponsors withdrew, and her circle of friends quietly disappeared. Meanwhile, Richard's reputation recovered, but more importantly, Amara's name was cleared. The Amara Johnson Center opened officially a month later, attended by hundreds of families and community leaders. Reporters were there too, but this time, they weren't there for scandal, they were there for inspiration. As Amara stood at the podium to cut the ribbon, Richard watched from the crowd. She looked radiant, confident, proud, no longer the scared waitress from that awful night. When the applause faded, she turned to the audience and said, "A year ago, I was serving drinks in a ballroom I didn't belong in. Tonight, I stand in a place built to make everyone belong. If life has taught me anything, it's this: Dignity is not something anyone can take from you. You give it up only when you stop believing you deserve it. The crowd rose in applause. Cameras flashed. Tears shimmered in Richard's eyes. After the ceremony, he approached her quietly. "You were amazing up there." She smiled. "We did this together." He shook his head. "No, Amara. You did this. You turned pain into purpose." For a moment, they stood there, two people who had been through humiliation, loss, and lies, and somehow found truth in each other. Then, with a gentle smile, Amara said, "You once told me money doesn't silence doubt, it just changes the volume." Richard chuckled softly. "Guess you helped me turn it down." The night breeze swept through the open doors, carrying laughter and music from the celebration outside. The world around them had moved on, but something lasting had been born in its place. Not a scandal, not a rumor, a story of grace, strength, and redemption. And for the first time in a long time, both Richard Steele and Amara Johnson finally felt free. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Every story we share reminds us that kindness costs nothing, but can change everything. See you in the next one, where truth, love, and justice find their voice again.